Hi guys, we're going to carry on with our story The Wizards of Once by Cressida Cowell, and we left last week when Tsar and Luther were in the spelling competition and the enchanted sword had escaped outside of the magic circle, and then Tsar's father had seen what was going on and he was coming over to see what was happening. So we're going to carry on with chapter 9, Encanzo the King Enchanter. The King Enchanter was a tall man, and magic had made him taller still. It was curiously difficult to look at him, for he always seemed to be very slightly changing shape, blurring in and out at the edges. But underneath the constantly changing outline of his face, where magic came and went like waves on a coastline, he was stern and unbending as a cliff. He was such a very powerful wizard that there was something very scary about him, even when he was just standing there quietly. He had one black fingernail on his right hand, and there was a story of how the fingernail had turned that colour, but no one dared ask the enchanter what the story was. Two very large, very old snowcats settled themselves on either side of the enchanter, as if they were statues framing a door. Tsar and Luther staggered to their feet like a couple of carbon scarecrows. Tsar, snapped the enchanter, what has happened here? And what are you doing competing in the spelling competition? The cold anger dropped from the enchanter's voice for a second as he asked, has your magic come in at last? The enchanter's voice was eager, too eager, for it told his son how much the enchanter wanted that magic to come in. It has, said Tsar. It has not, said Luther. Well, Tsar, said the enchanter sternly, and this time you could hear his disappointment. Has it come in, or has it not? Maybe not, admitted Tsar sulkily. Then why are you competing in this spell? Began the enchanter, but Luther was so cross he rudely interrupted his father. He cheated. He's completely out of control, roared Luther. He went into the backwoods this evening with some mad plan that he was going to catch a witch and use its magic for himself, and then he tried to attack me with this. Luther was going to tell the enchanter about the sword, but unfortunately the enchanter punished him for his rudeness by sewing Luther's lips tight with magic before he got to the end of his sentence. One flick of the enchanter's little finger and Luther's mouth shot together like he had lockjaw. Ranta, Tsar's tutor of wizardry and advanced spellwork, now rushed forward. Ranta was a huge pomposity of a man, with a nose like a dignified lobster and various quivering, outraged chins. His air of dignity and calm was disrupted by the fact he was being closely followed not only by some very grand and ancient sprites, but also 6 small piglets, oinking lovingly up at him. I have tried to speak to you about this on many, many occasions, enchanter, cried Ranta, and you have chosen not to listen. This is only the latest in a long line of disobediences. In the past week, your son has ridden his snowcat up the fort flagpole, removed the flag of the wizard tribe, and replaced it with a pair of your excellency's underpants. He has burned down the west part of the camp. That was an accident, objected Tsar, interrupting. I was just teasing the chimney sprites and they couldn't take a joke. Besides, he added hurriedly, it wasn't me and I wasn't there. And with the last complaint, Ranta's voice dropped to a thrilling, furious quiver that made his chins shiver from side to side, banging against one another. And worst of all, he has poured Love Never Lie's potion into the pig's feeding trough, so the pigs are behaving in a most outrageous fashion. Despite his intense annoyance with his younger son, the enchanter's lips twitched with amusement. He looked down at the pigs, gazing up at Ranta adoringly. Ah, yes, I did wonder why you had taken to having pigs as followers, Ranta. Not very dignified for a senior wizard of your standing, I thought. The pigs, spat Ranta, are not my idea. Your son has inflicted them on me, and you should not find this amusing, enchanter. Your son's disobedience and lack of magic brings dishonour on our whole tribe. What do you have to say for yourself, Tsar? Said to the enchanter. You have no evidence, shouted Tsar, furiously punching the air. I am Tsar the Magnificent, and I demand a fair trial. Of course, said Incanzo the Magnificent. Could you show me what you have there, Tsar? He pointed to a package that was poking out of one of the pockets hanging around Tsar's waist. Very reluctantly, Tsar took the package out of his pocket, and Incanzo insisted he unwrapped it. The package turned out to be a burned flag of the wizard tribe, tied around a half-full bottle of Love Never Lies potion. Incanzo shook out the flag. Yes, I would call this evidence, wouldn't you? And I pronounce you guilty. I've never seen that flag before in my life, proclaimed Tsar. Unfortunately, Tsar was still holding on to the bottle of Love Never Lies potion. And Love Never Lies potion has two properties. One is that if you eat it or smell it, you fall in love with the next person or animal you see. The other is that it turns from red to blue when the person who is holding it tells a lie. Incanzo watched the Love Never Lies potion as slowly the liquid turned from maroon to a sort of smoky indigo. Someone must have put that flag and that Love Never Lies potion into my pocket, because they certainly don't belong to me, said Tsar, carrying on lying in a hopeful sort of way. The indigo of the Love Never Lies potion darkened to black at the magnitude of this untruth. The bottle filled with smoke and shook in Tsar's hand. The cork shot off and Tsar hurriedly recorked it, but not before a fine mist of Love Never Lies potion had drenched the little piglets sitting in a quiet, beloved circle at Ranter's feet. And this fresh sprinkling made them jump to their feet again, oinking madly and making ruder and ever ruder noises as they tried to get Ranter's attention. Ah! Roared Ranter, batting away at the piglets. Get off me! Shoo! You beastly creatures! Shoo! Only Tsar dared laugh at this entertaining sight, because the enchanter had stopped being amused. He was staring down at his younger son, with thunderous eyebrows descending down over his fierce hawk eyes. You are not only guilty of everything Ranter and Luther have accused you of, Tsar, you are also a liar and a thief, said the enchanter grimly. Curse his beastly father. Why did he always have to make Tsar feel so small? And now you must give up these silly little tricks of yours and grow up, said the enchanter. While all these other things are just stupid and babyish, trying to obtain a source of bad magic is a serious crime that wizards have been expelled for in the past. And he should be expelled, said Ranter, breaking in with excitement. The last son of Incanzo the Magnificent, king of wizards, not to have magic? It's shaming, it's terrible. What if the magic never comes in? We would be the laughing stock of the wood. Tsar's stomach did an uncomfortable flip. You are only saved from expulsion by the sheer stupidity of your ideas, Tsar, said the enchanter with withering coldness. Even a 13-year-old should know that witches are extinct. And if there really was such a thing as a witch out there, only a madman would try to get within 100 yards of it. Incanzo pointed his finger at Tsar. Incanzo did not need a staff to concentrate his magic. It blasted out with such pure intensity it was not even visible. Tsar's blackened clothes closed round him so tightly that he could barely breathe. There was a writhing snake pattern on the broken dust of the mud floor where Tsar was standing. The patterned snakes on the floor began to move around each other, and then they grew solid and slid up and off the floor, and twined their way around Tsar's legs, and his now living clothes carried him up in the air like he was swinging from the branches of a tree, and the hissing snakes turned into liquid mercury that curled around him and solidified and turned into chains, so that he was hanging suspended in the air, twisted round with bonds. "Let me down!" cried Tsar, furious with temper. "You've gone into the Bad Woods against my express instruction," said the enchanter. "You sought to take magic from a dark source and bring it into this fort to cheat your way into winning a spelling competition. I will keep you there until I decide your punishment." "I don't see why I should be punished at all," fumed Tsar, struggling in the chains, his legs kicking wildly in the air. "It's not fair. I don't see why you always pick on me." "I always pick on you because it is always you who has done everything," replied the enchanter in exasperation. Caliburn spread his wings and whispered in the enchanter's ear. "I would suggest patience," said the raven. "It's very important that you are patient with children and try and see things from their point of view." "I have been very patient with the boy," said the enchanter from between gritted teeth, "but I am running out of patience. The boy must learn to obey me, and if he does not, he must be punished." "The more strongly you punish him, the more he will rebel," warned Caliban. Demindor, the ambassador to the court from Druid High Command, stroked his beard and put his finger high in the air. "A boy without magic is a sign the gods are most displeased." "That's true," said Swervely, "for he was always trying to overthrow Incanzo. This is another story I'll tell you about later. And maybe your failure to punish and control your son effectively is a sign you are not fit to be the ruler of this tribe." "Ah, being a father and a king is harder than it looks, and everyone thinks they could do a better job than whoever happens to be the parent or the monarch at the time." "Be quiet, the lot of you," cried Incanzo, the king enchanter. "When I need your advice, I will ask for it. Tsar is merely being childishly disobedient and showing off in front of his friends because his magic hasn't come in yet." Tsar lost his temper. "Well, at least I'm trying to do something," shouted Tsar, "and at least I'm trying to act. Whereas you, father, you do nothing at all." The hall full of wizards drew in their breaths simultaneously. The outline of the enchanter hummed with fury. Great shooting sparks came off him, and above, the clouds drifting across the high ceiling of the room grew darker and darker, and great rumbling bursts of thunder echoed throughout. Caliburn put his wings over his eyes. Was Tsar actually trying to get himself expelled? "Why aren't we going out there to fight the warrior army?" shouted Tsar. "That was just the point that I was making," purred Swervely, eyes alight with pleasure. "Even Encanzo's own son thinks his father is not doing a good job as king." Swervely broke off, because the enchanter's finger had given a little flick, and the talk around Swervely's neck tightened inexplicably, and it was quite a while before Swervely could breathe again. "Confronting the warriors would only be a good thing if it was a fight that we could win," said the enchanter, trying to keep his temper. "Why do you think we cannot win it?" shouted Tsar. "Maybe the warriors are wiping us out anyway, while we hide here in our slowly shrinking forest, twiddling our thumbs and thumbing our fiddles and doing our poxy little magic spells and love potions, while they burn up our forests and kill our giants and destroy our entire way of life." Incanzo, the king enchanter's eyes blazed. "We are hiding from the warriors like cowards," Tsar shouted back. "Why are you teaching us to be such cowards, father? Maybe you are a coward." "Silence," stormed the enchanter, "or I will make you silent. I will sew your lips tight with magic." "Do it then," said Tsar. "I do not care." "Enough," shouted the enchanter. "I have decided your punishment. You and your sprites and your animals shall be locked in your room for the next 3 days." "It's not enough," muttered Ranta angrily. Tsar looked stricken. "No, father." "Then you should not be disobedient, should you?" said his father, the enchanter, in his sternest voice. "Now be silent." "I was the one who was disobedient. Don't punish them, punish me," said Tsar furiously. 3 days, said the enchanter, even more coldly and white with temper. "Every time you speak, I will add on 1 more day." Tsar opened his mouth to speak and shut it again. 4 days, said the enchanter. You shall not leave your room for 4 days. And if you do not listen to me and disobey me further, I will take your animals and sprites away from you forever. Zar did care about that. Oh my goodness, he cared about that. He was silent. I am the king here, said the enchanter. All of you in this room need to remember that. And Zar needs a reminder of who we are. His father continued, You have a very fine opinion of yourself, Zar, but the truth is, you are conceited, you are willfully disobedient, you are astonishingly selfish, and the fact that you try to obtain bad magic from a witch shows you do not understand the very basic of what it means to be a wizard. For wizards should seek good magic, Zar. You have one last chance to be good, warned the enchanter. Be good. For any more disobedience, and I will be forced to expel you, and remove all your animals and sprites. You don't care about me, cried Zar at the top of his voice. All you want is a son who is magic. Silence, roared the enchanter. He moved his arms once more, and all around the hall, where columns and pillars and staircases had been shattered into thousands of tiny pieces by the blast of the spelling ring exploding, the tiny dusty fragments lifted up from the floor and danced in the air like clouds of hummingbees. The enchanter moved his arms as if he were conducting an invisible orchestra, and the dust responded to his instructions. It is easy to destroy, said the enchanter, but I am not like a warrior, impressed by destruction. It is far harder to create, and creation is what we wizards are all about. Play, fiddles, play. The fiddles shot up into the air and began to play themselves, and the millions of tiny fragments billowing through the gigantic hall in enormous drifts, like smoke from a forest fire, danced in time to the music with such speeding energy that you could feel the heat coming off them and warming up the faces of the wondering wizards looking up in awe. It was a very effective demonstration of the power of the enchanter, for invention was far more difficult magic than demolition, and only he could perform magic as tremendous as this. He was doing it to make a point to his son, and to remind Swervely and the other wizards gathered there of what wizards should stand for. And it worked. Even Swervely reluctantly gasped in awe, while cursing under his breath, mind you. Create, Zar, create, and then you will impress me, finished the enchanter, his arms whirling wildly and gloriously to the tune of the music he had inspired. And in the meantime, you will stay in your room until I tell you to come out. Bam! With a final eardrum-bursting clap of thunderous magic that lit up the hall like sheet lightning, the millions of tiny pieces of dust slammed together and formed whole columns once more. The crack in the floor closed, and Zar's clothes and the flying snake chains carried Zar up to his room, where the door flew open and the snake chains swung him back and forth and then suddenly released him, depositing him on the floor. The enchanter made a sign to Zar's animals and sprites, and the animals leaped out of the hall and up the stairs, with the sprites following, and Caliburn too, with slow, reluctant wing beats. The door of Zar's room slammed shut behind them. It won't be enough, sniffed Luta, whose lips had at last come unstuck. Ranta was right. You should have expelled him. The enchanter roared at Luta, unusually, for Luta was normally his favourite son. And when I say roared, I mean he opened up his mouth and a blast of furious magic came out of it, with such force that it actually blew Luta off his feet. And then Incanzo stalked off and threw himself into his throne, and put his head into his hands, thinking, what is wrong with Zar? Why has his magic not come in yet? I have given him the best giant in my land, the finest tree, the most brilliant advisor in Caliburn. But why can't I control him? Being a father and a king is harder than it looks. Right, so I wonder what's going to happen now. Zar is in his room locked away for 4 days. So I wonder if he'll actually stay in there or whether he'll figure a way out. And what's going to happen to Wish and Bodkin, because they're in there too. Find out tomorrow. Bye.